We will be giving away Welkin Moon when we hit 1,000 subscribers. Because why not? I want you to have Farina or Riotously, so please subscribe and drop your UID and server. The Genshin Impact 5.5 beta cycle has been moving fast, and we've officially reached the point where major adjustments are usually made to character kits. 2 weeks have passed since the initial beta release of Varesa and Iansan, and if history tells us anything, this is when significant changes occur, whether it's buffing underwhelming characters or toning down those that seem too strong. So let's break down everything that has changed, what it means for both characters, and whether or not Varesa and Iansan will maintain their current power levels when they finally release in version 5.5. First up, Varesa's base stats have been slightly altered. She now has lower base defense, but in exchange, she's been given a small increase in base attack, which for an attack scaling carry like Varesa is always a win. But here's where things get interesting. Some of her motion values were actually nerfed. Her charged attack and skill damage multipliers have been reduced, both in their normal and fiery passion states. Now, before you panic, there's a good reason for this. You see, Varesa's main source of damage doesn't actually come from her normal attacks or skill. Her true power lies in her plunging attacks. However, her charged attacks and skill are what set up her plunges, so even though these nerfs might seem concerning at first glance, they don't actually lower her overall output significantly. And to balance these nerfs, Hoyeverse actually buffed both of her passives. Her Ascension 1 passive used to provide a plunge damage bonus, increasing the percentage of her plunging attack damage. Now, instead of simply buffing plunge damage, it directly increases the raw multiplier of the plunge itself. A normal plunge gets a 60 MV boost. A plunge in Fiery Passion mode gets a 150 MV boost. Her Ascension 4 passive has also been strengthened. It now grants even more attack whenever her Night Soul Burst is triggered. And since her C1 is directly tied to her A1 passive, it has been adjusted accordingly as well. So what's the takeaway? Varesa's kit has been shifted more toward plunging attacks rather than distributing power across multiple abilities. While her charged attacks and skill were toned down slightly, her plunges are now stronger than ever, and that's what truly matters for her playstyle. Now, let's talk about artifacts, because this is where things get really interesting. With version 5.5, we're getting a brand new plunging-focused artifact set, which, at first glance, seemed like the best possible set for Varesa. However, early theory crafting results tell a different story. While the new set does enhance plunge damage, it doesn't affect her charged attacks or skill. And since Varesa still relies on those abilities for damage, this actually makes Obsidian Codex a strong alternative. In Xianyun teams, the new set is slightly better than Codex. But in Chevra's Overload teams, Obsidian Codex is actually pulling ahead. So despite the artifact set being designed specifically for her, there isn't a massive gap between the new set and Codex, making both viable options depending on your team composition. And speaking of teams, let's take a quick look at how these changes affect Varesa's best setups. Varesa's best teams, what works best? Now that we know Varesa's plunge attacks have been strengthened, her best teams remain largely unchanged. In Overload teams, Chevra's plus Pyro synergy still performs exceptionally well. In Anemo plunge teams, Xianyun remains her strongest enabler. And for general use, teams with Farina or other Hydro units can also work surprisingly well. Overall, Varesa's changes are actually a small buff rather than a nerf. Depending on the source, her damage increase is estimated to be around 1 to 2% in total, which may not sound like a lot, but any buff is a buff. Now, let's talk about Iansan. I was completely convinced that Hoyeverse would nerf her. Why? Because she looked way too strong for a 4-star, potentially rivaling Bennett in utility. Surely they wouldn't let that slide, right? Well, they did. Iansan received no balance changes at all in this beta cycle. Instead, the only adjustments made were text updates to her ability descriptions. That's it. Even crazier? Her birthday was added to the game files, which, in Genshin beta cycles, usually means her kit is finalized. Now, this doesn't mean she's completely safe from last-minute tweaks, but if Iansan stays this strong, she might just be one of the best 4-star units we've seen in a long time. At this point, unless Hoyeverse suddenly decides to make drastic changes, both Varesa and Iansan seem locked in as strong, viable units for 5.5. Varesa has been slightly buffed, with her plunging damage getting even stronger. Iansan remains untouched, meaning she might just be a new 4-star powerhouse. And the artifact set meta is shaping up to be more balanced than expected, with Obsidian Codex still being a solid choice. Of course, as always, none of this is 100% final until the official release, but for now, things are looking very promising for both characters. What do you think about these updates? Are you excited for Varesa and Iansan, or were you hoping for more changes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on future updates. Oh, and if you made it this far, I'm giving away a welcome moon when we hit 1,000 subscriber. So hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for the next video. See you next time, travelers.